We start episode 4 still in the midst of Luthen and Cassian's chaotic escape. The latter has just barely survived a corporate raid, lost his cover and been plucked out of the fire by a stranger who knows far too much about him. As Aldhani opens, the dust hasn't settled yet, literally. Luthen's Hallcraft is still punching through Ferrix's atmosphere, the ship rattling the turbulence. Cassian is bleeding, dizzy, asking the one question he's probably asked the most in his life: is anyone behind us? Luthen doesn't answer, he just says set for Aldhani. The ship's AI confirms coordinates in that smooth voice, and Cassian suddenly realizes this vessel can do something he's never seen before. A Fondor Hallcraft, he knows them, he's flown them, but this one leaps into hyperspace in seconds and moves so fast and clean it makes him lurch back a bit, wide-eyed, questioning what magic lays behind this deceptively impressive ship. His physical disorientation as the ship jumps matches his emotional disorientation. He's being pulled into something faster than his internal processing can deal with, and that's where the real scene begins, because the turbulence stops, but the pressure does not. Luthen's first words after stabilizing the ship aren't warm or even explanatory. They're, "You're bleeding on my floor, fix your arm." It's classic Luthen, pragmatic, unsentimental and commanding. It's a power play but disguised as medical advice. In fact, he's been doing it all the way through the scene. He's getting Cassian used to obeying instructions. Grab the blue one, hold on, do it now. And Cassian's been doing as he's been told, and the one time he didn't, he suffered for it. Then comes the fork in the road. Luthen reminds Cassian why he's alive and lays out his options. He can be dropped somewhere to start running again. He can come along and help with something important, or if he really wants, he can kill Luthen and steal the ship. Kill me, run or join, those are your choices. This has some echoes to the narrow choices presented in my video on the authoritarian pitch. Luthen knows Cassian only has one choice. Running isn't a plan with legs. We can be pretty sure Luthen won't risk leaving him somewhere when he could just as soon knock him out and throw him out the airlock, and maybe Cassian knows that too. And taking the ship? Luthen knows he won't. Given the backstory I've evidenced, he's likely to have probed how cutthroat or merciless Cassian is, whether he has a code, whether he's a good man, in his discussions with Bix. And of course Cyril. Luthen wouldn't have cared if Cassian had killed him, even though I think it wasn't a serious instruction, but it's informative that he didn't, and I think they've bonded a little bit too, or Cassian has at least, during this escape. I really don't think Luthen believes he's in danger here. Plus, the act of speaking it has a couple of psychological effects. If you're planning on killing someone and they voice it, there's a kind of, "I don't want to now, you've made it all icky." Violence, when it lingers as subtext, feels sharp and alive. It belongs to the aggressor, private and potent, a fantasy. But once spoken aloud, it curdles. The secrecy is gone, the surprise is gone, the imagined control is gone. What felt like power a moment ago now feels exposed, almost embarrassing. Luthen voicing it so calmly makes it sound banal. Secondly, it's intimidating as fuck. If someone calmly suggests you try, and all you know of that person is they're smart and competent and always prepared, and oh yeah, you're flying in a spacecraft with insane capabilities, you'd have to be crazy to actually go for it. Cassian probably realizes this AI may be armed with some internal defense systems, if he gets aggro, and at the very least the ship will not let him fly it. "You have killed my owner. Life support off. Venting atmosphere. Don't worry, you won't suffocate to death. You'll freeze first." Cassian bristles. He doesn't need Luthen to steal. And when Luthen needles him about how well he's doing on his own, Cassian flinches and sulkily requests to be dropped off, hurt by Luthen's comment. It's pure defensiveness. Cassian's hurt pride won't let him be recruited so easily. But Luthen is good at this game. He reframes instantly. And do what? Continue as you are? Whether you steal plasma coils or 20 million credits, the Empire will hang you with the same rope. I'm offering you everything you want, all at once. That's the pivot. Luthen's recruitment technique is a masterclass in spycraft. He offers both ideology and money, but keeps them balanced. One on its own wouldn't work. Cassian is too cynical for lofty speeches and too proud to be bought cheap. But combined, put a real stick in the eye of the Empire and get paid for it? That's the magic formula. Cassian scoffs, claims it's all useless. Better to live, eat, sleep, do what you want. He insists Luthen doesn't know him, and then crucially he reaches for his trump card, Mimban. I fought in Minban when I was 16, 2 years of it straight out of prison into the mud. I'm one of 50 that survived, and who did it turn out we were fighting? Ourselves. This is Cassian's self-mythology. He's trying to slam the door on Luthen by saying, you don't know the horror I've seen, don't talk to me about causes, I've lived through them and they're all lies. But here's the thing Luthen does know, he corrects him. You were on the ground in Minban for 6 months, you came in as a cook, you lived because you ran. And this is where many viewers misunderstand the exchange. The word cook is often taken as an insult, as if Luthen is trivializing the trauma, but I don't think that's what he's doing. Cassian's trauma is real, it was horrible there, and when things are that bad you don't really have cooks and mechanics, everyone's a soldier or a field medic. He undoubtedly lost a lot of newly acquired friends and brothers there, and Luthen knows Cassian's trauma is real. So if cook really was meant as a minimization of what Cassian went through, this conversation would not have ended with a deal. We've actually seen Minban before in Solo, a Star Wars story. It's a swamp planet, perpetually foggy and wet, where the Empire threw conscripts into a trench war against local resistance. Han Solo himself was dumped there in the mud as a punishment posting. It looks more like the Somme than Star Wars. So Cassian's exaggerating his endurance. He wants to sound like a hardened veteran who's seen too much to care. But Luthen's correction doesn't lessen the horror, it's factual. It reminds us that even 6 months, even as a supposedly supportive role, was enough to scar Cassian for life. The line isn't dismissive, it's diagnostic. Without being insulting, it's an effective way to diffuse some of Cassian's cynicism. When Luthen adds you lived because you ran, that's the only real sting, is both a criticism and a compliment, and a theme in Cassian's life. It means Cassian's defining trait isn't bravery or loyalty, it's survival instinct. He doesn't die for undeserving causes, he doesn't hold the line unless he was to potentially find something worth that. He finds a way to survive, and Luthen is telling him, that's why I want you. He sees Cassian's cynicism not as a flaw but as a resource. One of many reasons Cassian hates the Empire is because he's been forced to fight their pointless wars. He distrusts causes because he thinks they always collapse into betrayal, but beneath that cynicism is rage, and Luthen imagines, his word, that when that moment comes, Cassian will die fighting these bastards no matter what he tells himself now. The only question is whether he does it piecemeal, wasting his life in scraps, or whether he gives it all at once for something real. That's the full pitch, not just 200,000 credits, not just revenge, purpose. Notice how the roles have flipped since Ferrix. In that industrial hall, it was Cassian doing the selling, trying to convince Luthen to buy his stolen Starpath unit. Luthen was poking holes, asking skeptical questions, controlling the negotiation, and Luthen won that round. He walked away with Cassian. Now here on the Hallcraft it's reversed. Luthen's the one selling, and Cassian's the skeptic, scornful and resistant. And once again Luthen wins, because Luthen is better at this game from either side of the table. Luthen rules this encounter with the quiet certainty of someone who already knows the outcome. He commands the room, the ship, the pace of the conversation, and even Cassian's body, instructing him where to look, what to drink, how to heal. He frames choice as a trap. Every road leads back to him. Run and die, kill me and fail, or join and live. He interprets Cassian's past with more authority than Cassian himself, cutting through bravado with clinical precision. He defines Cassian by his flight and then recasts that instinct as a weapon he alone can sharpen. This too is authoritarianism of a particular kind, not the grand systemic kind of empires and bureaus, but a more intimate species. Luthen's authority is paternal, presenting coercion as care. It is pragmatic, built on competence and foreknowledge. And it's interpretive, claiming the right to tell Cassian who he is and what he will become. He does not demand obedience for its own sake, but he bends Cassian's will all the same. Luthen is an instrumental authoritarian. He recruits Cassian by mirroring the methods of authoritarian power, controlling environment, narrowing choices, defining identity. He's not Palpatine, but he uses similar structures of coercion, just inverted toward rebellion. Everything Luthen does in this scene is a manipulation to get control of Cassian. And I think Cassian kind of enjoys following orders despite his dislike of authority. What he resists is the weightless command of fools and tyrants. When someone shows competence, when they see further than he can and speak with clarity, he bends almost willingly. On Canary, he admired the girl who led so effectively. And now, bleeding on Luthen's ship, he finds a strange comfort in another voice that cuts through the noise. Cassian is not a leader, not yet. He is a man who craves order in the chaos, if only he can trust the hand that gives it. The scene ends with the real hook, the job. 5 days, big stakes, big danger, prepped team, good plan. You survive and deliver, I'll give you 200,000. And when Cassian finally asks what they'll be stealing, Luthen drops it like a hammer. The quarterly payroll for an entire Imperial sector. That's the hero music cue moment, the reveal that shifts everything. This isn't just a theft. It's not a trinket or a plasma coil or a little survival money on the side, it's the kind of strike that proves the Empire can bleed. Cassian is trying to protect his cynicism, to keep himself from being pulled into another cause. Luthen is carefully dismantling that cynicism, piece by piece, not by denying Cassian's trauma, but by reframing it. The offer, money, and meaning in one package is perfectly calibrated to break through Cassian's defenses. The turbulence has stopped, but the real destabilization has only just begun. Cassian thought he'd escaped Ferrix with just his skin. Instead, he's being recruited into something far larger and propelled into hyperspace faster than he's ready for. But despite spending the entire scene scoffing at Luthen, he's already finding rebellion impossible to resist.